All right, so here I am with Old Green. I got everything put back together. Wow, was it tough. Guys, Fords are so difficult to work on. So, the power steering pulley going back on did not want to go on. The threads that went uh, inside of this shaft here would not hold. They stripped right out. They were all corroded away. And one tip, if you're gonna attempt to do anything like this to a truck like this, make sure that if you're going to pull your pulley off your power steering pump, make sure that the tool actually works to reinstall it because the threads were pretty much gone. What ended up happening is the tool kept popping off before the pulley could get pressed on. So I had to heat up the shaft on the pulley just a little bit, not red hot or anything, not enough to burn any rubber seals or anything in the pump, but just for like maybe 15 seconds. I put matte heat on it and spun it around, but then just barely caught the threads and pressed it on. It was like the skin of my teeth. I was able to get by without having to get a new power steering pump. Then, that was a huge fiasco, but we ended up getting it done. But I got the high pressure line on, no problem. Everything snapped in, no problem. Here's the issue though. Because I was in here working on it, trying to get everything fixed, there was some disruption caused to some pre-existing issues with another power steering hose. The low pressure hose right by the high pressure hose, which we replaced, is now leaking horribly. As you can see, this one's going to leak all the time because it's pretty much got the reservoir, it's pretty much got the fluid in the reservoir, the weight of that fluid's on it. But just going in here and having to move this around, it just caused it to give way. So now it's just leaking. So I got to figure out how to fix that. I actually saw it coming, but you can't pull this line out of the rack and pinion. It doesn't come out. And looking online, it's a very common problem for this lower hose to get stuck in here. So if now that it's leaking as bad as it is, I wasn't sure if it would leak at all until I ran it, and it's pouring out, shooting out like crazy. Now that I know that it's leaking, I can say that I can go ahead and really try to pull it out, knowing that I'm pretty much screwed anyway. Worst case scenario, the whole entire rack and pinion has to come out. But if I can get that out without taking out the rack and pinion, I'll be in really good shape. So I'm going to look online and try to figure out some stuff to try to get that out. If I can get that out, I got the part ready to go. And hopefully I don't have to take out the entire rack and pinion, because that would be, I don't know how hard that would be. It's just a matter of taking off the front tires, popping off the front tie rod ends, undoing it, and undoing the steering shaft here as well, which then is like, I'm sure it's going to just open up a can of worms. Everything with this truck is literally a can of worms. But we got the new high pressure line on, and we need to replace the low pressure line. Really, all the lines need to be replaced that regard to power steering, because this low pressure line, the one that is leaking, definitely needs to be replaced because it's leaking, but it's not going to be long until that guy right there is going to be leaking. Let me look at the condition of that line. And they're under a good amount of pressure just because of, just to get the pressure back up to the reservoir. So that's that's coming next. I might as well order this line as well because it's pretty bad. It's not going to be long until it's leaking. So these trucks, man, if you get one of these trucks, if you're looking at these trucks, you really got to know what you're getting into. Like, if you've known about the power steering issues, if you get one that's pretty clean and you go ahead and fluid film everything related before it gets this bad, then you'd be golden. But me not knowing nothing about these trucks, there's a lot of pitfalls to these trucks. So I think that I would like to have one that's a lot newer, if I can get a good deal on one, knowing some of the issues and being able to maybe see some of the problems before. But man, just one little repair turns into like the end of the world. So anyway, that's it. Moving along here, I'll go ahead and fix this next line. So I got to figure something out. I've been figuring out all kinds of crazy nifty tricks the whole way along, using a hole saw to drill the high pressure line off of the pump. The pump's pretty much frozen onto the truck. You definitely break the bolts. Definitely would need some heat. Once you take the pulley off of that power steering pump, you can get heat to those bolts. But man, is it difficult. All right, things have changed and turned into my favor here with Old Green. I was able to get the low pressure power steering line off, and I want to show you guys what product I used to get this stuck hose off of this truck. This thing would not move for anything. And what I ended up using, and it worked really quickly, is this CRC freeze off. This stuff worked so quickly. Before I even tried to apply heat or anything, again, I tried heat by itself, it didn't work. I froze the part that I wanted to remove. Now the idea is the cold will cause it to shrink. So I tried to focus the cold onto this part because I wanted this part to shrink and come out of the rack and pinion. So I froze only this part and just wiggled it, and it wiggled free right away. So it still wouldn't come out, so I put just maybe 10 seconds of heat, not enough to really get red hot or, to hopefully not damage the rack and pinion, not damage any of the seals. I covered the rack and pinion boot with a wet rag, and just to kind of protect everything in the rack and pinion from the flame or from getting damaged. And I just put a little bit of heat right there on the bottom of that housing where the hose was frozen into that bottom outlet right there where the low pressure goes. Put a little bit of heat there, and then came around. Now I put the heat on the part that I wanted to expand, and I put the cold on the part that I wanted to come out, to shrink that part, and using the heat to expand the actual housing, and it came out. And I have fought with this thing for hours, and that is definitely the trick. Here's a look at the failure here. Yeah, that's going to leak. So I got it out. Time to put the new one in. Whew, I think I actually might be able to fire this up and get it running. Now, the only thing I noticed that's going to be an issue is there's another power steering line right there, which is in pretty rough shape. Luckily, it's not leaking just now, but I might as well go ahead and order that one and replace that one next. So anyway, I'll keep you guys updated and see you guys in the next flick.
Oh my goodness.
All right, guys, so I got it running, no leaks. Got power steering fluid, or ATF, automatic transmission fluid, in there. Looking good. Let's take a look at our pressure holes that we had to fight to get into the bottom of our power steering pump. Look how tight that is. So that one is not leaking. Looking good. Follow that down here where it mounts to the block. That's tight. Got our new, or our old, pressure sensor switch right in there. I don't know if you can see that. Going across here to our cooler. Got our new low pressure return line in there. Right there. I'm going to spray some cleaner in there to make sure it's all good. It looks good. But yeah, it looks to be pretty good. Got our new low pressure. This is an AutoZone part right here. Our low pressure line from AutoZone. Still feels good going in, even though it's not a Motorcraft, but gotta get what you can get. So coming out of our cooler, our power steering cooler, we have another line that, from here, you got some weird looking spots here. Wherever it meets plastic seems to be a reaction, but up in here, it looks like there could be a leak there. I don't know if that's coming from the top. This line looks pretty bad. It could just be coming from the top. We'll see. But yeah, that's going to be the next one and the final line to get replaced in this whole endeavor. We'll take a look here and see. I don't know if that line just failed on me right there. If it just failed or if it was failed, we'll see. Alright guys, going in with a new power steering hose here. This is the last piece to the puzzle. It turns out that this truck needs every single power steering line. So this line here, as you can see, it is toast. It's so close to blowing out that it's like you might as well go ahead and change it. Here's a look at the new one. It is a Duralast part, which is cool. I try to get OEM as much as possible, but it's an old truck, and these are all low pressure. And Duralast parts are decent enough. As you see, the fit and finish is pretty much going to be exact. Some of the differences would be they use a cheaper crimping mechanism here, which is adequate. Is it a cheaper part? It's about the same price as of the OEM part, but AutoZone can get me the part literally the next day, whereas if I go for OEM and go through Rock Auto, it's gonna take me a little bit longer. This thing came to me shipped for free, so I just gotta snake this up in there and put on this clamp. I gotta reuse that clamp. Be nice if it came with new stuff, but it is what it is. So I guess I'll snake it on up there and then put the clamps on and fill it back up and bleed it. Alright, I got the new part in, and going with the Duralast from AutoZone, I did notice a little bit of a fitment issue. I had to trim off a few inches of the hose in order to get it to fit. Right up here was too long, and it would have caused all kind of bunching and everything, so I just trimmed like maybe 2 inches or so off of the hose because it was too long. I guess they give you a little bit of extra just in case. And over here, the rest of it fit okay going in here, but right here there was a little bit of contact with the front here, with the front metal. It was getting a little bit close to the front metal, so I cut a piece of fuel line and wrapped it around the metal just so it would cushion it in case it makes any contact here with this bolt. As you see, is really close to the bolt. So other than that, it went pretty good. So all our low pressure stuff is Duralast, and all our high pressure stuff is Motorcraft OEM Ford. And I will say the Motorcraft OEM Ford does fit a little bit better. Motorcraft is good enough though, or Duralast is good enough for the return lines, and just like I said, it's easier to get a hold of those quickly. AutoZone's got a real good next day delivery. So what I'm also doing is I got some CRC marine grade heavy duty corrosion inhibitor, and this stuff's great. Some say it's better than fluid film. I'm just spraying all this stuff down so that these lines don't rust in the future. This stuff has a pretty good review. A lot of guys say it's better than fluid film. According to, also spray up under here by the rack and pinion on the lines. According to Project Farms, kind of smoky. According to Project Farms, this stuff performs better than fluid film. It's one, actually, I think it won an award on that channel. So I'm gonna spray what I can spray with this corrosion inhibitor, and hopefully that will prevent any rust here in the future. But it should be good for the life of the car. I mean, this truck's already got 220 on the clock, so this stuff should last till the end of the life of the vehicle. So anyway, comment below, tell me what you think. I already started it up and bledded it, and I just got to take a little bit of fluid out. So comment below and tell me what you think. Alright guys, so here's a look of everything that was replaced on Old Green. We got our high pressure line here. This one was actually leaking right there. When you can see that small cut there is where it was leaking, and you know, it was a small leak under pressure, kind of gush out. Now looking forward, our low pressure line developed a leak after we changed our high pressure line, and that developed a leak right here in the metal. And this did not want to come out of the power steering pump or the power steering rack and pinion. And I looked online, and all the forums and videos, these just freeze into the truck. So what we ended up using is CRC freeze off, and it worked instantly. That stuff is amazing. So that's the low pressure that started leaking, and then this last piece of the puzzle started showing signs of leaking right here. Started showing signs that it was seeping out, and just look at the condition of that line. Just horrible. So if you're looking at changing one of your lines and you see rusty lines, just be prepared to change all the lines. They run about, I think they run about $30 a piece. So it is what it is. By far the hardest one to change was the high pressure. I ended up pulling off the pulley. That way I left the power steering pump in. You could do it either way. You could either take out the power steering pump. Once you get some of that CRC freeze off, you could take off any component that you need. So I was a little bit nervous to take off the power steering pump because of the bolts, but with the CRC freeze off, I could have done it either way. I ended up pulling the pulley. But anyway, guys, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. What are you doing under the truck, Nathan?
His face has oil and stuff on it.
Does it? Was he crawling under the truck?
Yeah, he was.
Oh, we'll have to wash him down.
Mama gotta